Hey, welcome to Cheaper Jeeper TV. In this week's episode, we're going to build a DIY hardtop storage shelf, so stick around. Hey, welcome to Cheaper Jeeper TV. A viewer who'd watched this video here on the DIY inexpensive hoist for your hardtop in your garage had asked if I could come up with an idea for people who wanted to remove their hardtops but don't have a garage in which to hoist their hardtop. So I came up with a few ideas and I thought I'd share with you the one that I thought was the simplest idea, and I tried to keep the cost down as much as possible, but the price of wood these days is unbelievable. Anyway, let's have a look at the design. I looked for some design ideas by searching Jeep Wrangler hardtop wooden storage shelf, and an image search turned up a few good ideas. Here's a somewhat elaborate design that allows you to lift the top off your Jeep using hoist and then settle it down onto a frame. Okay, what I like about this one is its simplicity in design. But this is going to require that somebody's there to help me when I need to lift the top off the Jeep as I slide it backwards to rest on that shelf. Metal scaffolding. Well, if you have it, you might as well use it. But again, you'd have to back the Jeep up against it, have somebody help you lift the top off to set it on the shelf. This is like the other wooden one, where you back up the Jeep against it, where you have somebody help you lift the top off the back of the Jeep and slide it backwards to rest on the shelf. I like this because of the scale of the item, but it still requires that you have somebody help. But with a little modification, I think I've got a solution. Here's an image of the design I'd like to try. It's quite simple and modular. You can see that there's a driver's side and then there's a passenger side, and there's a cross piece that supports the two sides that goes along the back. But this design is a little different, as you don't back the Jeep up to it but into it. And I think I figured out a way how to hoist the top up to be supported by those shelves. So I'll show you in this video how I built this shelf where you can put the top up onto the brackets yourself and have a great day driving your Jeep without the top on, and at the end of the day how you could back it back in and install the top back on yourself. But first, let's have a look at the materials involved. First, you'll need one 2x8 that's 8 foot long. You'll cut it in half and they make the top piece for each shelf. Then you'll use 5 2x4s, which will also be cut in half, and those 4-foot sections will make up the framing for each shelf. Next, you'll have one 2x4 that's 8 foot long that you'll cut at 77 inches to make the back brace, but you could also make it 78 inches if you're not comfortable with the narrow width in which you have to back the Jeep. Then there will be another 2x4 that's 8 foot long that you use to make the braces. And then finally there's two 2x4s that are 8 foot long that you'll support the top when you put it back onto these shelves. And then finally there are 4 2x2 stakes. When you look at 2x2 lumber in the hardware store, you'll often find the finger jointed type, and you don't want to use that because they are weak at those joints. So that's why I use the lumber provided in the 2x2 stakes, because they're one solid piece. So in summary, I've got one 2x8 that's 8 foot long, 9 2x4s that are 8 foot long, and 4 2x2 stakes. So I think we're ready to get started. So given that design and the simplicity of how it's supposed to operate, plus a few little innovations that allow you to do this by yourself, we'll start the build. Let's get started. Once I unload all the lumber, I'll start cutting the 2x4s in half so I could build the frame for the shelf on each side. With all pieces being 4 feet, it's going to be pretty simple to keep things square. I left the bottom part of the brace 7 inches from the ground. That way it won't be influenced by uneven terrain if you were to put this on the lawn. Here I'm just checking for square before I put in the final screws. I'll use a second 2x4 on the top cross member to support the 2x8 that will be mounted on top. Repeat the process for the second frame and we'll be ready to put on the top piece. Just cut the 2x8 in half and I'll have a 4-foot length for each shelf. Here you can see me making sure I orient the top piece so it overhangs towards the Jeep so that the frame is further away from the wheel wells. So far, so good. You can see here how I use some storage boxes to help me mount the back brace piece, which will go flush against the back bumper. So now it's time to cut some braces and then square things up. Well, that's it. I'm pretty happy with how it's turned out so far. I'm just going to cut the back brace piece because 77 inches will do the trick for me. If you want to leave another inch, you could. Now let's do a test drive to see how easy it is to back in. Lucky me, first try. But we're not done yet. We still have to make the mechanism by which it'll allow you to mount that top on that shelf by yourself. Let's have a look. I'm going to use the lumber for my 2x2 stakes and I'm going to cut them 7 1/4 inches long and I'll make 8 pieces. Have a look here at what I'm going to do with them. The plan will be to flank a 1 foot long piece of 2x2 by the 7 1/4 inch pieces. They're mounted on a piece of plastic panel to provide a height difference so that the middle piece will have room to move. A cap of 3/4 inch plywood is held in place by 4-inch screws. The same mechanism is fabricated on the other side because this is what I'll use to elevate the top so I could drive the Jeep out from under it. So if you have somebody there to help you, when you raise the top they could push these pegs underneath the edges to support it in place so you could drive the Jeep out from under it. But if you don't, we're going to use 2-foot long bungee cords and we'll put a little stopper with a screw so that those pegs don't just fire right through the Jeep. And here's a look at the other side. The space right here will be for a 2x4 that's going to scoot underneath that end of the top when it's elevated and then secured to the shelf. And here's the space for another 2x4. Now I finished assembling the hardtop platform yesterday, but it was way too windy to try to take the hardtop off. So we waited till the next day, but that's one of the nice things about this system is that it's modular. You have the driver's side piece, the passenger side piece, and the rear cross member. And also another nice thing about this system is that you can remove the hardtop yourself. So let's put this thing together so I can demonstrate. So I bring out the 2 sides of the shelf, the driver's side and the passenger side. Then I take the cross piece and I secure it to the 2 sides using the holes and some markings that I put on those pieces yesterday. Well, that was pretty easy. Now it's time to back the Jeep in and take the top off. One thing to remember is to make sure that you raise the rear glass before you back the Jeep in. Because when the top is lifted and you drive the Jeep out from under it, that spare tire would hit the glass if it wasn't open. And since this video is about the shelf, I won't get into the details about the plugs and screws that you have to remove in order to remove the hardtop. There are plenty of videos out there on just that. So now I'm loading those pegs with the bungee cords. Okay, let's see if this works. Wait for it. Wait for it. Holy smokes, it actually works. So those are the two back pegs. Now we'll raise the front of the top so that we can engage the front two pegs. Well, I have to admit, I'm pretty happy with how everything's been going so far. Now it's just a matter of shutting the tailgate and driving the Jeep out from under it. Excellent. Now, this is where the last two 2x4s come in handy. I use them to mount underneath the four corners of the top, in which to secure the top to the 2x4s and then the 2x4s to the platform. With those two 2x4s screwed to the platform, I now secure the top to the cross braces using 2x4 blocking screwed into place. Of course, you could also use strapping, whatever is your preference. And now with everything in place, you've taken the top off your Jeep yourself and you're ready to go for a joyride. Have fun! And now, how easy is it to put the top back on? Well, first you have to remove the blocks, and then after you remove the blocks, you can unscrew and remove the two 2x4s that were supporting the top while you were driving around. Now the top is just sitting on top of those pegs that you had loaded with the bungee cords. But this time we're going to have the bungee cords pulling on those pegs outwards so that when you raise the top, it'll remove the pegs so that it'll lower on your Jeep. Let's see how it goes. And of course, remember to open the back window so that when you back the Jeep underneath the top, that the spare tire can pass through. So let's try and lift the corner. No way. Is it that easy? So now you just go around and lift each corner and make sure that the peg comes out, and then you rest the top back onto the Jeep. I'm sure it'll be a little easier each time I do it, but this wasn't so bad. Now I just have to put the screws back in and I'm done. Well, I've got the top all buttoned down now, so I'm pretty happy that this system worked out. It's got a few features that are handy. The fact that it's modular, you can take it apart and put it away when you don't need it. And I got a couple other tips that I want to share with you in the tip segment. Now for some cheaper Jeeper tips. One thing that I didn't think about is the opportunity to fabricate something that allows you to hang the doors on the side of this platform, or to include something that allows you to hang the doors from underneath. The image on your screen is the underside of the hardtop on the driver's side of the Jeep. You'll notice there's a peg in the back corner of the hardtop and one near the front of the bottom of the hardtop. Those pegs are engineered to line up with some holes that are in the tub. You'll also notice on the passenger side the same two pegs at the bottom of the hardtop aligning with holes in each of the two corners on the passenger side. It's very important when you lower the top that you align the pegs with those holes so that your hardtop seats properly. So if your hardtop just doesn't seem to be fitting properly, make sure that you have those pegs aligned with the appropriate holes. And you'll also find some guide pins on your freedom panels as well. So when you're putting your freedom panel back on, as soon as you align that pin, everything will go in place And one reminder, when you're doing the freedom panels, the driver's side comes off first, then the passenger, and when it's time to put them back on, the passenger goes first, and then you put on the driver's side. So I hope you found that helpful. Now let's hear what our subscribers have to say. And now for subscribers' tips. This week's subscriber tip comes from our How to Remove Scratches Easily video. Hey Cheaper Jeeper TV, I just learned from another channel, use peanut butter on the black mirrors and bumpers to bring back shine. Tried it on my mirrors, worked great. Signed, Chris. Hey Chris, that's nuts. I certainly remember that video and all the scratches that I had to remove. I think it would have been a much more pleasurable experience if I used that product. Thank you very much, and if any of you have tips that you'd like to share, make sure you put them in the comments section below, as they may make it in a future episode. Hey, that's it for this week's episode of Cheaper Jeeper TV. I hope that you found it helpful, and if you did, how about giving the video a thumbs up? And if you're new to the channel, feel free to hit on the subscribe button right here so you'll be notified when our next video is released. Until then, I'm Dino for Cheaper Jeeper TV. Be well, stay safe, take care.